Happy New Year's, everyone. What do you say we start 2018 off with a series that I have very much been looking forward to? My name is Nick, and welcome to the Resident Evil 5 Professional Difficulty S Rank No Damage walkthrough. I'll get into kind of what this walkthrough is going to entail during this first initial video. There's also an introductory video to the walkthrough. You can find the link to that video in the description down below. At the start of every level, I'm going to show you the organization screen here where I will show you exactly what resources and weapons I'm going to be bringing with me into the level. I will be playing this game by myself. I'll be controlling Chris the entire time. Sheva will be controlled by the AI, for better or worse. Anyway, guys, I have very much been looking forward to this series. I hope you're as excited as I am. Without further ado, let's kick things off. As usual, I will not be talking during the cutscenes, so go ahead and enjoy the opening one, and I'll see you afterwards.
Captain Deshant here. We secured the underground route to the coordinates.
I should have seen it coming. It didn't take long after the fall of the Umbrella Corporation for their bioweapons to end up in the hands of terrorists. A new era of bioterrorism descended upon vulnerable countries, shifting the balance of power throughout the region. People in the destabilized areas soon feared another incident like Raccoon City was inevitable. As panic spread, governments of the world turned to the Global Pharmaceutical Consortium, which formed the anti-terrorism unit BSAA. Operatives of the BSAA were sent to infiltrate and neutralize bioterrorist hotspots, restoring safety and stability to various regions around the globe.
Welcome to Africa. My name is Sheva Alama.
Chris Redfield.
Your reputation precedes you, Mr. Redfield. It's an honor.
Just Chris, thanks. So you'll be accompanying me to the destination?
Yes. Tensions are running high ever since the change in government.
I'll bet. Intel says it's a haven for terrorists now.
And I'm not going to be happy to see an American, BSAA or not. That's why I'm your partner. Help put them at ease.
Well, I'm sure you'll do just fine. Partner.
You okay?
Yeah, sorry. It's nothing. Let's go. Casualties continue to mount over the long years I've struggled. More and more, I find myself wondering if it's all worth fighting for. Maybe one day, I'll find out.
Hey, hey! Huyo ingenti, anafanya nini hapa?
You don't have to get touchy. Let's go.
There is one thing I do know. I have a job to do, and I'm gonna see it through.
So we're going to kick things off with Chapter 1-1, Civilian Checkpoint, a little introduction to the game. There are 16 levels, And believe it or not, this is going to be a pretty short walkthrough. Now, as it says in the title, and as I explained in the introductory video to the walkthrough, I will be utilizing infinite ammo upgrades during this playthrough. I'll explain the justification behind that choice during this video, but having infinite ammo makes things a lot easier, and so my completion time for this game ended up being about 3.5 hours. And so each video in the walkthrough is actually only going to be about 15 to 25 minutes long on average, so it's going to be pretty quick. I'm really looking forward to it. Let's go ahead and watch another brief cutscene. Now, as you can imagine, this is the first level of the game, so they have to set up the story. So there's going to be a couple of cutscenes throughout. There's going to be another one right here. You're going to go in this room here. You're going to talk to the informant, and that's going to trigger yet another piece of dialogue. And you're going to get your first weapon of the game, which you'll notice I'm actually going to discard.
You too. This way. But maybe because of the new government, the people around here are a little on edge. You should do what you came here to do and go home.
Yeah, they really roll out the red carpet for us Americans.
I have your weapons for you here. Check them. Grab your weapons. The operation's already started.
Destination coordinates?
Town square's up ahead. Go through there. Alpha team's waiting at the deal location.
Good.
What do you know about Ouroboros?
Mostly just rumors. Something about visions of a doomsday project.
Doomsday sounds about right, and apparently it is no rumor.
You're kidding, right?
You must find a man named Irving. He's our only lead. And be careful out there.
So guys, if you're new to the channel, what I like to do is I like to include every cutscene. I like to include the full story in my walkthroughs because personally, when I watch people play games, when I watch walkthroughs, I like to follow along with the story as well. That being said, I also don't talk during the cutscenes. Now, most of the levels aren't going to be like this. There's not going to be so many short and choppy cutscenes. But like I said, this is the first level of the game, so they have to use that time to set up the story and whatnot. I really enjoy this game. Resident Evil 5 is a lot of fun, and like I said, I'll talk a lot about these things in this video and throughout the walkthrough, but my opinions of this game completely changed because of this playthrough, and I'm really glad I decided to do it, because it actually took me a while to replay this game. I'll explain why in a little bit once we get to the village defense sequence, which is at the end of this level. But anyway, you're going to just continue on the path here. You'll notice I don't have the mini-map in the top right corner most of the time because I like to show you the full screen, and I kind of know my way around by now, so there's not much chance of me getting lost. Go ahead and go into this room here, and we'll be fighting our first enemy of the game.
Freeze!
So this guy's going to charge at you. Just go ahead and back up. I'll pop one shot into his chest and down him. Now, like I said, I am using the infinite ammo Magnum. The Magnum is my weapon of choice. It's basically one of two weapons I'm going to be using during this entire playthrough. I'll pretty much only be using the Magnum and the rifle. Certain locations I will use the rocket launcher. Now this part right here, this kind of captures the essence of what a survival horror game is. You're going to see this giant horde of enemies getting ready to ambush you. Your first instinct would be, hey, I better aim my weapon and get ready for a fight. But instead we're going to use our brains, we're going to play intelligently, and we're just going to turn around and run to this room right here. That's actually kind of what you're supposed to do. It's actually not encouraged that you take on that fight. And Resident Evil 5, it's a little tricky because, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, this is where the franchise, maybe with Resident Evil 4, but this is especially where the franchise starts to take a turn for the more action-oriented genre. And so it loses some of those survival horror elements. Nevertheless, there is still that surviving element that not every fight needs to be fought. There are a lot of moments where you can actually just run past the conflict, and it's usually the wiser choice to take because you save ammo, you save resources. Now, obviously, in this playthrough, I'm using infinite ammo, so I'm not really going to be focusing on conservation. But if you're not using infinite upgrades, you might want to take those things into consideration. Now, kind of on note with that, this walkthrough, it might not apply to everyone. Now, the reason I decided to use infinite ammo, I'll touch upon that again a little bit later after the opening cutscenes. But it should all make sense in due time, and I'll kind of explain who this walkthrough is targeted at and everything like that. All of your questions will be answered after the next cutscene when we get into the bulk of the gameplay for this level. It is the dreaded village defense sequence, but luckily, just like in Resident Evil 4, I found a very, very good strategy to take on this fight.
You don't know what you're talking about! You can all go to hell!
Wait a minute. That's the...
Tipo, for what? Now to Zuia. Happen, Daddy! What you want to lay you down? Yangia that too!
Alright guys, so this is what you're going to want to do. First tell Sheva to push that shelf, and then you're going to come over here and push this shelf. Now while you're waiting, you might want to look around the room and get some ammo, get some items. Of course I have the infinite upgrade, so I'm not going to worry about that. What I'm going to do, first and foremost, is I'm going to stand over here by this shelf, and I'm going to aim over here through this window. If any enemy tries to go to this door, I'm going to try to shoot them. They run pretty fast, so it might not work, but you'll see here I'm going to run up and shoot these guys. That's because I need this shelf over here to stay intact as long as possible. If I can help it, I'm not going to even let that shelf get broken. That's kind of the main factor here, is you really need that shelf to stay intact, because this one will eventually get pushed over. This is where the enemies tend to concentrate. And what you're going to do is you're just going to stand in front of this window and you're just going to start knifing enemies as they make their way through. At the same time, you're going to want to momentarily just take a moment to look over to the right and make sure that that other shelf is still intact. If that shelf does get broken, it's not the end of the world. You might have to be a little more vigilant, be a little more careful. But basically all we're going to do is sit here and guard this window until the executioner shows up. Now you'll notice I'm using my Magnum. You don't need to do that. You can just stand here and knife the enemies as they make their way through. You can use your pistol. Sheva will help out by shooting them. You'll notice I gave Sheva the machine gun, and that's the only weapon that she's going to be carrying the entire game. There will be a couple instances where I do give her the Magnum, but those are few and far in between. So I'm not really going to be focusing on those So, like I said, I'm just guarding this doorway. The other doorway should remain intact. Now pay attention to Sheva, because eventually she'll turn around and she'll start shooting behind you, and that's kind of your indicator that enemies have started coming through the doorway that you came through. When that happens, you're going to want to jump out here, and the Executioner is about to show up. So you'll see this little cutscene here, and that's when the Executioner shows up. So what you're going to do is you're going to come over to this fence here, and this is where the real strategy comes into play, and I must say, I'm pretty proud of this one. So check this out. Here comes the Executioner. I'm going to run right past him, take a sharp left and jump over this fence. Take another sharp left and go up this ladder. Now take a right. You'll notice I pulled up the mini-map so you know exactly where I am. Go back here. There's one more ladder. You're going to climb up here, and we are going to hunker down here, and this is where we're going to stay for the rest of the fight. Now, this is a really good location. In my opinion, it's the best location on the map. There are only 2 areas the enemies can approach you from. One is right here. You can see these guys trying to hop over the fence. The other is up this ladder. Those are the only 2. Those are the only 2 ways the enemy can get to you, either by climbing up this fence or climbing up the ladder. Now, you're going to notice that I'm using my gun here. Completely unnecessary. You could get through this section with only your knife, maybe a pistol if you need to. What you'd want to do instead is you'd want to stand at the top of the ladder. Anytime an enemy tries to climb up the ladder, you knife them down. That will cause them damage not only from the knife, but fall damage as well. And then anytime you see an enemy trying to climb over the fence, you either run over and knife them, or you just pull out your pistol and you shoot them when they're on top of the fence. And you'll notice if you shoot the enemy while they're on the top of the fence, they'll actually go flying off, and that will cause them even more damage. And that's it, guys. You're just going to stay up here for the remainder of the fight. The Executioner cannot get up here. For some reason, if you actually pay attention, through the fence you can see him running around the yard down there, and he's just thinking to himself, I know how to swing an 80-pound axe, but for the life of me, I can't figure out how to climb a ladder. And that's what allows this strategy to work. There are very little enemies that can actually make it up here. The Executioner cannot make it up here, so you've already eliminated him from the fight entirely. And all it is a waiting game. You just wait here. You can see just how easy this is. I'm pretty proud of this strategy. I took a very similar one in Resident Evil 4 where I stayed on top of the tower. In that instance, the enemies couldn't even get to you. In this case, the enemies can get to you, but it's really not much of a threat. You can use any weapon you want and take these guys out. It's really that simple. So anyway, guys, that's the walkthrough. Again, this is a professional difficulty, no damage S rank walkthrough. So what that means is I will be getting an S rank on every level of the game. I will not take any damage. You'll notice you do start off with the health that I have right now. So right now I'm at half health. That's by default. I haven't actually taken any damage, so I think in level 2 I'll actually take the opportunity to heal myself just because it's kind of a pet peeve. I like to have full health, and then from there I'll never heal myself again. So I'll go through this entire game without taking damage. That is excluding Chapter 2-3 Savannah, because that doesn't really count, and I'll explain why when we get to that chapter, but that's the level where you're in the Jeep the whole time. So technically Chris doesn't take any damage, it's the Jeep that takes damage. All of that will come later on, but for the most part, this is a no damage walkthrough, S rank on every level, played on professional difficulty. Now, originally, I had a tough time deciding how I wanted to do this walkthrough. I wanted to give myself the biggest challenge, and so what I was going to do was I was going to delete all of my items, and I was going to play this from scratch. No money, no weapons, no upgrades, nothing. But then I thought, you know what? The main purpose of my walkthroughs is to help people. And most people, they're not going to do that unnecessary challenge. Most people are going to utilize everything they've accumulated in their previous playthroughs. And so that's what I'm going to do as well. And so again, if you're watching this walkthrough to actually get help, I highly recommend you watch the introduction video, which you can find a link to in the description down below. You can also find it in the walkthrough playlist. If you're watching this walkthrough for entertainment purposes, just because you're a fan of my channel and you're excited for this series, what I've done is I also decided not to just run around with the infinite rocket launcher the whole time, because that's not a lot of fun to watch, just watch some guy run around with a rocket launcher. So instead I decided to use the Magnum, because at least with this weapon, it's not only a one-hit kill, but it requires accuracy. It does require some skill to actually use this weapon, and so I think that will add the entertainment aspect to this walkthrough. But anyway, guys, that's it. This strategy will get you through the entire fight. Like I said, I'm very proud of this one. Here comes Kirk. Go ahead and watch the ending cutscene, and I'll join you at the very end for the sign-off. there you have it, guys. Chapter 1-1 is in the bag. There you can see kind of the components that make up your ranking, accuracy, enemies killed, deaths, and clear time. I'll explain more about these as the walkthrough goes on. Chances are, if you're playing on professional by now, you know what these are. But anyway, guys, that will do it for the first level of the game. If you're new to the channel, like and subscribe if you get the chance. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, anything and everything. I really hope you guys are excited for this walkthrough because I definitely am. And that'll do it. So I will see you in the next video.